What is the INFJ door slam? How does it look like for you? Have you experienced it before, and why do INFJs do that? Great question. There's a lot of talk about the INFJ door slam, and I know I've talked about this before, maybe not in these Q&As, but I have talked about this before in other forums. I think we actually covered this in the INFX Mastermind training series. So that is, I think, where we did this question last. So INFJ door slam is often, INFJ door slam is a way for INFJs to set boundaries that is not very healthy. Okay, so INFJ door slam basically means that, the INFJ, is patient for a long period of time, doesn't set boundaries, and just grins and bears it until they can't do it anymore, and then they just close the door. And so that's the opposite of setting healthy boundaries and reinforcing the boundaries when you've had a boundary violation. INFJ door slam is often thought to be some heroic thing that INFJs do. There are a lot of INFJs who feel really empowered by door slamming other people, and while it's absolutely true that the door slam is an immature way of setting boundaries, it is also something that every INFJ should experience at least once in their life, so that they know that they can do it if they want to. Now, how does it look like for me? For me, it looks like getting to a point where, you've just given so much of yourself without reciprocation, and you feel like you've been very clear about your boundaries and they're still being trampled. And sometimes you do come across sociopaths or narcissists who just do trample on your boundaries repeatedly, but that is actually really rare in life. So if you've had those experiences, please don't feel like I think that this is just in your head. It's not. And in fact, I think that every INFJ, in order to get really healthy, should slam on something or somebody at least once, but do it consciously so that you know what's going on. But it's not a very sophisticated way of setting boundaries, because it takes away the conversation of what your boundaries actually are, and what happens, how it makes you feel if people cross those boundaries or violate those boundaries. So you actually stop yourself from communicating your boundaries in a healthy way with other people, where they then have an opportunity to change. Whereas if you just slam a door, that doesn't give an opportunity to change. It just reinforces the fact that you're alone and that you are a victim. So if you want to move beyond the kind of the loneliness, the perpetual loneliness and the victimhood, then the door slam is not going to work for you. So what is it? It's a way of setting boundaries when you don't feel very empowered. So it's like an early stage of setting boundaries for INFJs, early stage of personal development. How does it look for me? It looks like, you close the door on something because you've given off yourself so much, and it's gone unreciprocated, or somebody's just constantly violating your boundaries, and you just basically close the door on them and don't have anything to do with them anymore. Have I experienced it before? Yes, I have. And in fact, being in this position of a teacher and a mentor, I've even had some INFP clients who have slammed the door on me because their inner 10-year-old got a reaction to something that they didn't want to hear or weren't ready to work on. And I get this maybe once a year, something like that, maybe not even that often, but I get this, people kind of slam a door on me, INFJs, and then some years later they send me a message saying, hey, sorry about that. My 10-year-old was out of control. I hope you're really well. And And yeah, thank you for everything that you do. So that happens. I think there's been one person in one INFJ who slammed the door in my whole entire life who hasn't done that. So it's more often that people do come back and say, hey, sorry, I was out of control. But I have experienced it. Have I slammed the door on anyone? Yes, I have slammed the door on a couple of narcissists, actual malignant narcissists. And why do INFJs do that? They do that because they don't feel that they can communicate their boundaries to the other person for whatever reason. So I hope that answers your questions. But yeah, that is something that we INFJs do experience, and I believe have to experience in order to have almost like a rite of passage to a kind of like a higher level of maturation. So that's what it is. INFJ door slam. It's a tool. Use it, and then find more sophisticated tools going forward. It's important. Okie doke.